Hypothesis testing begins with two contradictory points of view. The test is a competition for what we will believe to be true, and therefore also what's not true, but always remembering that it is tempered with the recognition that what we believe always carries a probability of being wrong. Hypothesis testing consists of two contradictory hypotheses, or statements, a decision based on the data, and then a conclusion. To perform a hypothesis test, we will follow these steps. 1. Set up two contradictory hypotheses. 2. Collect sample data. 3. Determine the correct distribution and test statistic to perform the hypothesis test. 4. Analyze the sample data by calculating the test statistic that ultimately will either provide enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis or will fail to provide that evidence, and thus we will not be able to reject the null hypothesis. 5. Make a decision and write a meaningful conclusion. The two hypotheses are designated as the null, labeled H0, and the alternative labeled HA, or sometimes H1. These two hypotheses cover all possible numerical alternatives. For example, if the null hypothesis is that the mean of a population is equal to 50, then the alternative must be that it is not equal to 50. The number 50 is taken by the null, so the alternative has to be all other possible numbers. Every number has to be accounted for. If the null hypothesis is that the mean is equal to or greater than 50, then the alternative will be less than 50 to cover all possible numbers. By way of convention, the equal to sign is always in a null hypothesis, even if it means equal to or less than, or equal to or more than. Most important is what statement goes in a null hypothesis. In all statistical hypotheses, the null hypothesis will always be what is believed to be the truth, the status quo, the way we see things now. The alternative is the competitor, the contender, the claim of an alternative view of the world. All statistical hypothesis testing is based upon this notion and gives rise to the complaint that is sometimes called the tyranny of the status quo. All views of the world are not equal. The contender will have to prove itself with a conclusion that is very little probability of being wrong before it can be victorious over the current reigning champion's view. When testing pharmaceuticals to determine if they should be allowed on the market, the status quo is that the new drug will harm us. The burden of proof is on the drug company to prove that the drug works without harm and with a high probability of being right. The judicial system in the United States is built on the same principles as the statistical test of hypothesis we are studying. The principle of innocent until proven guilty says that the prosecutor has the burden of proof to send someone to jail. The null hypothesis is the status quo, innocent. If the prosecutor cannot demonstrate, with very little probability of being wrong, the so-called beyond a reasonable doubt standard, then we take action and someone goes to jail. The system is designed as much as possible so that the government does not commit the horrible crime of putting an innocent person in prison, or worse. Simply stated, if the conclusion is that you cannot accept the null, then you have to take action. The way we used to understand the world has now changed.